Imagine you are sitting right at the absolute pinnacle of global motorsport.
Right.
I mean, you are the reigning world champions. The confetti from last season has, like, barely been swept away. The champagne is dry. And you are strapping in for the 2026 Formula One campaign.
You're expecting a victory lap.
Exactly. You expect a victory lap.
Better.
But instead, you are just hemorrhaging points on the tarmac. I mean, your cars are suffering these catastrophic mechanical failures right underneath your drivers.
Like brutal.
It is. And the paddock, that notoriously vicious high-speed rumor mill is aggressively trying to tear your front office apart from the inside out. So, welcome to Paddock Notes. Welcome to this deep dive into the absolute chaotic reality of the 2026 grid.
Yeah, today we're really looking at it's a fascinating case study in organizational survival. We're going to dissect the internal political warfare that's just ripping through these garages. Plus the structural changes on the pit wall and the underlying physics of these massive new F1 regulations. Because honestly, they are pushing the best drivers in the world to a very dangerous breaking point.
Yeah, so if you want to understand the actual mechanics of surviving a championship hangover while, simultaneously fending off psychological sabotage from rival teams, this deep dive is for you.
Buckle up.
Seriously. Because one thing became glaringly obvious when we were putting this together. You cannot win on the track if your command center is fracturing.
No, it's impossible.
Right. So before we even look at the telemetry data, we got to look at the crossfire aimed directly at McLaren's leadership right now.
The politics.
The politics. Because for weeks, the paddock has just been flooded with whispers that McLaren team boss Andrea Stella is jumping ship.
Going to Ferrari.
Going to wear Ferrari red. I mean, there's talk of ghost pre-contracts and these massive blank check salaries meant for incoming engineer Gianpiero Lambiase.
Well, the psychological warfare in Formula One it's a massive part of the sport. And honestly, it starts long before the cars even fire up on Sunday.
Right.
Like the timing of these rumors.
Right.
It's absolutely no accident. We're in what the paddock calls the silly season.
It's just starting way earlier this year.
Way earlier. It's that period of driver and staff market speculation. But it's been weaponized incredibly early this year to deliberately destabilize the defending champions.
Yeah. And my initial thought was that a team boss would just ignore this. I mean, it feels like a classic distraction tactic, right? You float a rumor that the captain is abandoning the ship, and suddenly, the aerodynamics department is stressed, the mechanics are looking over their shoulders.
And you lose that crucial fraction of a percent of focus.
Exactly. I totally assumed Stella would just issue, I don't know, a generic PR statement about being focused on the next race.
Yeah, I mean, that's the standard playbook.
Mm-hmm.
But what is so compelling here is that Stella did the exact opposite.
He didn't hold back at all.
Not at all. He didn't issue some sterile corporate memo. He went fully on the offensive. He completely dismantled the narrative in front of the press by branding these rumors as poisoned cookies.
Poisoned cookies? I mean...
Right. He mocked the whole situation. He called it the work of a jealous baker who was actively trying to ruin McLaren's dessert.
That is just a brilliant way to reframe it. A jealous baker.
It's a masterclass in crisis management, really, because of what it signals internally. Like, in Formula One, the development pipeline for a car is roughly 18 months.
Right, so they're already looking way ahead.
Yeah, the engineers working in Woking today, they're designing the chassis for 2028. Oh. So if they believe their leader is leaving for Italy...
They start polishing their own resume.
Exactly. Instead of refining the front wing, they're looking for the exit. But publicly mocking the rumors, Stella planted his feet firmly. He basically made it clear to his factory that, hey, I know how to spot media sabotage, and I'm not going anywhere.
Okay, so the captain is staying, but that raises a glaring operational question, doesn't it?
Yeah, the Lambiase factor.
Right, because if Stella's locked in as the leader, why is Gianpiero Lambiase coming over in 2028? I mean, Lambiase is one of the most fiercely respected, dominant engineers on the grid.
He's an absolute alpha.
Yeah, he's not a background player. So I immediately wonder, is McLaren risking a massive clash of egos here? Like, how do you have two alpha leaders without creating a power struggle that just fractures the team?
Well, it definitely looks like a recipe for a civil war on paper.
Right.
But to understand why this is happening, we have to look at how Formula One itself has mutated. Stella refers to modern F1 as an XXL sport.
XXL, like just the sheer scale of it.
Exactly. I mean, we're looking at 24 race calendars, intense budget caps, global logistics, and these massive data farms processing, like billions of simulated data points every single week.
It's insane.
The cognitive and physical load of running a modern championship team is physically crushing. The traditional, top-down dictator-style management structure, it simply cannot carry the weight anymore.
So instead of a traditional hierarchy, they're building something else. It kind of reminds me of a shift in tech infrastructure.
Oh,
like instead of having one massive mainframe processing absolutely everything and eventually bottlenecking, you build a decentralized network.
Right.
You have edge computing handling the immediate localized data and then a central protocol managing the wider system.
That is a perfect analogy. That's exactly it. What Zach Brown and Andrea Stella are building is a horizontal power structure.
Okay.
Lambiase is not arriving to usurp Stella. In fact, Stella explicitly referred to him as the icing on the cake. Lambiase is going to step in as competition director. He'll take over the brutal second-by-second tactical reins on the pit wall.
Meaning he is the edge computing in this scenario.
Exactly. Think about the mental bandwidth required to make a split-second tire strategy call during a race.
Oh, man, it's denying.
You're tracking 20 different weather radars. You're monitoring tire degradation telemetry, calculating the undercut window of the car behind you.
All while talking to a driver who is pulling 5 Gs through a corner.
Right. So Lambiase will own that localized high-speed data, and this frees Stella from his current totally unsustainable double duty.
Yeah.
Stella elevates to oversee the macro system factory alignment, FIA lobbying, long-term global strategy.
Wow. Okay. So they're decentralizing the leadership just to survive the XXL era?
Exactly. It's a reinforcement, not a replacement.
That makes a ton of sense from an organizational psychology standpoint. You bulletproof the command center so the team can scale.
Right.
But I want to pivot to the actual track.
Yeah.
Because looking at the standings, all of this beautiful horizontal front office synergy, it is not translating to points right now.
No, it's not.
McLaren is in an absolute dogfight, and let's just be blunt, the math is devastating.
The current numbers are grim. There's really no getting around that.
I mean, they are sitting a distant third in the Constructors' Championship. They are staring up at a 135 to 46-point deficit against Mercedes.
It's a massive gap.
And the reliability issues, they are glaring.
Yeah.
We've already seen 3 massive non-finishes. There was Oscar Piastri's violent crash in Australia, and then that catastrophic double breakdown for both cars in China.
Yeah, that was a nightmare weekend.
Right. From an outsider's perspective, a near 100-point gap feels completely insurmountable when teams like Mercedes and Ferrari are flying. I mean, are they delusional to think they're still in this fight?
Look, it is very easy to look at a 100-point deficit, especially with 3 DNFs, and just write off the season. And you have to consider the budget cap implications of those crashes, too.
Oh, yeah. Fixing cars isn't cheap.
Right. Replacing a shattered chassis in Australia eats directly into the upgrade budget for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
But, and this is crucial, you can't just look at the championship table. You have to look at the underlying telemetry and the specific nature of those failures.
Okay, so what does the telemetry show that the points don't?
It shows that McLaren's problem is reliability, not raw aerodynamic pace. And in Formula One engineering, it is much easier to make a fast car reliable than it is to make a reliable car fast.
That's a great point.
The drivers, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, they are incredibly defiant right now. During the recent Pirelli tire test at the Nürburgring, the team didn't just turn laps. They went into absolute forensic overdrive.
Trying to find the gremlins.
Exactly. Analyzing the car's structural DNA to isolate those mechanical failures. And they have a massive data point giving them hope.
Suzuka. The Japanese Grand Prix. Because Piastri took second place there.
Yes, and Suzuka is the ultimate litmus test for a car's aerodynamic efficiency.
Why is that?
Well, Sector 1 at Suzuka is a series of high-speed sweeping corners called the S's. You cannot fake your way through there. If your car has a fundamental aerodynamic design flaw, Suzuka will expose it instantly.
So it's basically a wind tunnel in the real world.
Exactly. And the fact that Piastri snatched second, and that the pit wall's data suggests they had the raw pace to win outright if a safety car hadn't interrupted their strategy, that proves the speed is locked inside that chassis.
So the baseline DNA of the car is highly competitive.
Highly competitive. And furthermore, look at this team's institutional memory. McLaren mounted historic season-saving development comebacks in both 2023 and 2024.
Yeah, they really did. They were dead last in 23 at one point.
Right. So they possess the engineering culture required to iterate on a baseline and dig themselves out of a hole. They know the exact methodology for hunting down a team like Mercedes.
Well, that brings us to a really crucial part of this deep dive, though. Hunting down Mercedes requires a driver to trust the car enough to push it to the absolute limit.
Yeah.
And based on the quotes from the drivers, that trust is just completely gone. But they aren't blaming the aerodynamics. They are blaming the new 2026 rulebook.
The regulation.
Yeah, Norris is furious. He's arguing that these new regulations have completely stripped the organic feel out of the machinery, and he specifically said the rules are flooding the track with, quote, artificial elements.
This is perhaps the most critical technical issue of the 2026 season.
Yeah.
I mean, the new regulations have fundamentally altered how the power units operate and is creating a terrifying scenario for the people inside the cockpit.
I gotta admit, when I first looked into Norris's comments about the car feeling artificial, I didn't fully grasp the mechanics of it. I mean, I understand aerodynamics, I understand tire grip.
Sure.
Piastri mentioned experiencing these sudden, massive power spikes. Can you explain the actual physics of what is happening in the engine under these new rules?
Yeah, absolutely. To understand this, we have to look at the 2026 power unit regulations. The FIA mandated a shift toward a 50-50 power split between the internal combustion engine, the traditional V6 turbo, and the electrical system.
The hybrid part.
Right, specifically the kinetic motor generator unit, or MGUK. Because the electrical component is now responsible for so much more of the car's total horsepower, the software algorithms managing that energy deployment have become incredibly complex.
So, wait, the computer's basically doing a lot more of the heavy lifting when it comes to delivering power to the wheels?
Precisely. In a traditional setup, you press the throttle, and you get a linear, predictable delivery of power from the engine. You can feel the mechanical grip.
It's mechanical, yeah.
But under the 2026 regulations, the software mapping is constantly analyzing data to determine exactly when to deploy that electrical energy for maximum efficiency.
And electrical torque is instantaneous, right? It doesn't need to rev up.
Exactly. And here's where the power spike happens. Imagine balancing a 1,000-horsepower machine on a knife edge of traction through a sweeping corner at 250 kilometers an hour.
Sweaty palms just thinking about it.
Right. The driver is holding the steering wheel at a specific angle, perfectly balancing the lateral G-forces. But then, the onboard algorithm miscalculates the traction limit.
Oh, no.
Suddenly, without the driver pressing the pedal any further, the software decides to deploy an aggressive surge of electrical torque directly to the rear wheels.
Oh, wow. I mean, if you dump hundreds of horsepower to the rear axle mid-corner when the driver isn't expecting it, the rear end is just going to snap.
Instantly.
That is a one-way ticket to the concrete barriers.
It's a fundamental handling crisis.
Right.
I mean, these aren't minor complaints about the car understeering a bit or the tires degrading too quickly.
Right.
When the software overrides the human input and changes the power delivery mid-corner, the car crosses the line from being difficult to drive to being an active, unpredictable safety hazard.
That is insane.
The drivers are openly stating that the car is driving them, not the other way around.
That is genuinely alarming, especially considering where the calendar is heading next. I mean, we are looking at the Miami Grand Prix. It is a tight, unforgiving street circuit lined with concrete walls. If a computer misjudges the torque mapping there is zero runoff area to catch the mistake.
Wow.
What is McLaren doing about this before we get to Miami?
They are waging a massive political war behind closed doors. Like, right now, there are intense negotiations happening between the teams, the FIA, and Formula One management.
So they're pushing back hard.
Very hard. McLaren is actively weaponizing their status as the defending world champions. They are demanding emergency regulatory tweaks, specifically software patches to the torque mapping allowances before the cars even hit the tarmac in Florida.
Because they refuse to be passengers in an algorithm-driven race car.
Exactly. They are fighting to ensure the racing remains rooted in physics rather than code. They want the outcome of a Grand Prix to depend on the raw skill, bravery, and throttle control of the driver.
Not a spreadsheet.
Right. Not on who can survive an unpredictable software surge.
Man, this really paints a vivid picture of the landscape McLaren is navigating right now. I mean, it is a grueling three-front war.
It really is.
First, they're battling the psychological toll of the paddock, using that decentralized management to shield their factory from rumors and poached leadership.
Yep.
Second, they're frantically trying to claw back a massive points deficit against Mercedes, relying on the underlying aerodynamic data from tracks like Suzuka to prove their season isn't over.
A raw pace.
And third, they are locked in a...
But what if the unpredictable beast of the power unit isn't inherently flawed? What if it's simply a puzzle that McLaren just hasn't solved yet?
Ah.
Look at Mercedes and Ferrari. They are racking up points and finding incredible pace. So as you watch Miami unfold, consider this. Is McLaren fighting the FIA for safety tweaks because the rules are genuinely dangerous? Or are they lobbying for a rule change because Mercedes software engineers have already mastered the torque mapping, leaving Woking completely outcoded on the track?
Oh man, that is a fascinating perspective. If the championship is now being decided by who writes the better electrical deployment algorithm, the entire arms race of Formula One has literally shifted under our feet.
It's a whole new game.
It really is. Keep your eyes on the telemetry and your ears to the paddock, because the fallout in Miami is going to be incredibly telling. Thanks for joining us, and we will catch you on the next Deep Dive.